My name is Daniela, and I want to tell you my story. I live in a small coastal town called Brighton Bay, not too far from New York City. It's peaceful here, quiet streets, cozy little cafes, and you can always hear the waves in the background. I'm 29 years old and I work as a front desk receptionist at a small beachside hotel. Life was pretty simple. Some people might call it boring, but I liked it that way. I had a couple of close friends, a tiny apartment, and a routine that felt safe. I wasn't looking for love. After a few rough relationships in the past, I'd pretty much decided it was better to stay single. But sometimes life drops someone into your world when you're not expecting it at all. That someone was Michael. Michael came to the hotel on a business trip. He stood out from the usual guests, calm, polite, and just a little worn out. He had kind eyes, a soft smile, and a gentle way of talking. When he asked for a room, I checked him in, and the way he thanked me felt personal. I caught the way he looked at me. Not creepy, just warm. I smiled back without even thinking about it. The next morning he came down to the lobby and asked for recommendations around town. I told him where to get the best coffee, the quietest stretch of beach, and which seafood spot the locals actually went to. He really listened. Actually paid attention. Most people don't. I liked that. After that, we started talking more. He ended up staying 2 weeks. Every evening after his work was done, he'd come hang out in the lobby and we'd chat. Some days we walked along the shoreline. Other times we'd sit on a bench by the lighthouse. We talked about everything: life, books, music, dreams. He told me how stressed his city job made him. I told him about my quiet little life here. I felt comfortable with him. I felt seen. One night we were walking by the water. Stars were out, breeze was gentle. He turned to me and said, "Being with you feels like peace." Those words hit me deep. I think that's the night I started falling for him. When his 2 weeks were up, he left Brighton Bay, but we stayed in touch. Every day he texted. Every night we talked on the phone. We laughed. We shared stories. And I missed him way more than I expected to. A month later, he came back. This time he didn't book the hotel, he rented a little house near the harbor and asked me to come over. We cooked dinner together. We put on music and danced around the kitchen. It felt like we'd been together forever. I felt lucky. But then one evening, everything shifted. We were sitting on the couch drinking tea when he got serious. He took a deep breath and said, "Daniela, I need to tell you something." My heart started racing. "I'm married," he said, staring at the floor. "I have 2 kids." My whole body went cold. I couldn't speak. My hands felt like ice. I looked away. He kept going. "I didn't mean for this to happen. My marriage, it's not good anymore. We live in the same house, but there's no love left. I stay for the kids. That's it." His voice was quiet. He sounded sad. But I couldn't find words. My brain was spinning. I stood up and walked outside. The air was chilly and I could hear the ocean. I felt like I might cry. He followed me. "I get it if you never want to see me again," he said. I just nodded and walked home. That night I couldn't sleep. My head was full of questions. Why didn't he tell me sooner? Why did this happen to me? But I also kept remembering how he looked at me, how he talked to me, how safe I felt with him. I was so confused. I wanted to be mad, but I missed him already. The next day he texted, "I'm sorry. But I miss you." I didn't reply. For days I felt completely lost. I couldn't concentrate at work. I kept checking my phone. My heart and my head were at war. I told myself to forget him, but I couldn't. A week later I saw him again. We met down by the beach. I told him I felt hurt, that I hated being kept in the dark. He said he understood. He didn't make excuses. He just said, "I care about you." And then, I stayed. I know it's wrong. I know a lot of people would say I made a terrible choice. I know I became the other woman. But back then I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe it was only temporary. That maybe someday he'd leave his wife. That maybe he'd pick me. So we kept seeing each other in secret. He'd come to Brighton Bay once or twice a month. He'd stay in that little house by the harbor. I'd go over after work. We'd eat together. We'd talk. Sometimes we'd watch old movies or just sit quietly. It felt real, but it also felt fragile, like a dream that could disappear any second. We never went out in public together. We never held hands where anyone could see. No pictures, no real dates, no talk about the future. Just stolen moments in a quiet house. But in those moments, he made me feel special. He really listened. He remembered tiny things I'd said weeks before. He helped me cook, made me laugh, brought me books I'd mentioned once in passing. He made me feel loved. Still, deep down I knew the truth. I wasn't his first choice. I wasn't part of his real life. I was the side thing, something easy, something without complications. And yet I didn't walk away. Why? Because I loved how he made me feel. Because I believed him. Or maybe because I was terrified of being alone again. Those quiet nights with him gave me something to hold on to. Even if it hurt, it was better than nothing. But slowly, something inside me started to shift. I stopped smiling the way I used to. I waited for his texts more than I should have. I built my whole schedule around when he might come. I turned down plans with friends. I stayed home, always waiting for his call. My world got smaller and smaller, just him and silence. Sometimes I'd stand on the beach and ask myself, is this love, or am I just lost? And I'd tell myself, just wait. Maybe one day it'll be different. But the questions kept getting louder. Weeks went by and I stayed in that small, quiet world, waiting for Michael. I still loved him, but I was getting tired, not just physically, but deep in my soul. I was always waiting. Waiting for a text, waiting for a weekend, waiting for love that only belonged to me for a few hours at a time. Sometimes he'd come for a whole weekend. We'd stay in the little house near the harbor. We'd talk, cook, hold each other. But when he left, the house felt freezing and empty. I'd look around and see only my stuff. He never left anything behind, no clothes, no toothbrush, no photos, no trace he'd ever been there. It was like he had two separate lives. And in one of them, I didn't exist. I tried telling myself love takes time. I tried believing he really cared. Maybe he did, but he still went home to his wife, to his kids, to the life I was never invited into. And I started asking myself, why am I allowing this? One night after he left, I sat by the window watching the rain come down. I asked myself out loud, what am I doing with my life? I was in love with someone who could never give me his whole heart. I was always second place. I had dreams too, a real home, maybe a child someday, a man who would choose me every single day. But instead I had empty rooms and silent nights. I started to feel like I deserved more. But I was scared. I didn't want to lose him. I didn't want to be alone again. Part of me still hoped he'd change. That one day he'd show up and say, I left. I'm here now, just for you. But that day never came. I finally talked to my friend Nina, the only person who knew the whole truth. I told her how tired I was, how sad, how lost. You deserve to be someone's first choice, Daniela, she said. You should be with someone who's proud to love you, someone who'll walk with you in the daylight, not just hide with you in the dark. Her words stuck with me. I started noticing how much I'd changed. I didn't laugh the same. I didn't go out. I was always checking my phone. I'd stopped doing the things that used to make me happy, reading by the ocean, walking in the park, grabbing dinner with friends. My world had shrunk, and I'd let it happen. One night Michael came back. He smiled, brought flowers, kissed my forehead like everything was normal. But I was quiet. What's wrong? He asked. I don't know if I can keep doing this, I said. He looked surprised. Why now? Because I feel like I'm not living my own life anymore. I'm living in your shadow. I wait for your visits, your calls, your words, but I'm always waiting. I want more. I need more. He sat there quietly for a long time. Then he said, I love you, Daniela. You know that. Then why won't you choose me? I asked. He looked away. It's not that simple. I have kids. A family. And what am I? I asked softly. Just a secret. He didn't answer. That night I cried again. Not because he was mean, he wasn't. But because I finally saw the truth, he was never going to leave. Not for me. Not for anyone. After he left, I didn't text him. I didn't call. I needed space to think. Every morning before work I walked down to the beach. I let the wind hit my face. I watched the waves and thought about my life. What did I really want? What actually made me happy? Slowly I started remembering the old me, the girl who loved long walks, coffee dates with friends, curling up with books by the fireplace. I missed her. I also started thinking about what real love actually looks like. Not just sweet words and flowers, but someone who stands next to you in the open. Someone who says, "You're mine," without being afraid. I didn't have that with Michael. I started writing in a notebook every night. Just thoughts, feelings, questions. It helped me figure out what I wanted. And every page I filled made me a tiny bit stronger. Michael kept texting, "I miss you. I'm thinking about you. Can I see you?" But I didn't answer right away. I needed time. A week later he showed up at my door. "I needed to see you," he said. "You've been so quiet." "I've been thinking," I told him. "About us. About everything." We talked for hours. I told him how it felt to always be waiting, to always be second, to lose pieces of myself. "I can't keep doing this," I said. "I love you. Maybe I always will. But I need a real life. I want someone who can give me their whole heart, not just pieces of it." He looked so sad. "I can't leave them, Daniela. I've tried to picture it. But I can't do that to my kids." I nodded. I understood. But I understood something else too. This was the end. "I hope you find peace," I said. "I hope we both do." He stood up. He hugged me tight. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he left. And that was the last time I ever saw him. That night I cried again. But it felt different. The pain was real, but it was also clean. Like finally taking a full breath after holding it for too long. The next morning I walked down to the ocean. I stood there a long time just watching the waves. The sky was clear. The wind was gentle. For the first time in months, I felt calm. I knew healing would take time. But I'd taken the first step. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't waiting for a text. I wasn't checking my phone. I was just standing there with myself, and for right now, that was enough. Months passed after I said goodbye to Michael. At first the days felt heavy and long. I missed him so much. I missed his smile, the way he held me, the little things we shared. Some mornings I wanted to call him. Some nights I cried into my pillow remembering his voice. But slowly, things started to change. I started hanging out with my friends again. Nina invited me for coffee every weekend. We'd talk and laugh. Sometimes we'd just sit quietly together. It felt good to be around people who loved me openly, no secrets, no hiding. I went back to the things I used to love. I started reading again, quiet stories about love and hope. I walked on the beach every evening and watched the sunset. The ocean always calmed me. It reminded me that life keeps moving forward no matter what. I also started working on myself. I signed up for a little creative writing class at the community center. Nothing big, just something for me. Every week I wrote a few pages about my thoughts and dreams. Writing helped me heal. One evening after class, I stopped by the little bookstore on the corner. I hadn't been there in ages. Inside, I saw a guy looking at travel books. He smiled when he saw me, and I smiled back. He looked kind of familiar, but I couldn't place him. He walked over and said, "Hey, you're in the writing class, right?" "Yeah," I said. "I just started last week. I'm David." We talked for a few minutes about the class, about books, about how cold it was getting. Nothing huge, but his voice made me feel relaxed. The next week he sat near me in class. Afterward we walked to the cafe across the street. We talked about normal stuff, family, jobs, favorite foods. He was kind. He listened. And when I talked, he actually looked at me. I didn't feel nervous. I just felt calm. We started meeting up after class more often. Coffee sometimes. A short walk other times. He never pushed. He never asked about my past. He was patient. One evening we were sitting on a bench by the beach. The sky was turning orange and the air was crisp. I looked at him and said, "Can I tell you something?" "Of course," he said. I was in a relationship before. It wasn't healthy. He was married. I waited for him a long time. I loved him, but I was always second place. I don't want that kind of love ever again. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Thank you for telling me. I think you're really brave." And you deserve so much better. That night I went home feeling warm inside. Not because I was falling in love, but because I felt understood. Weeks turned into months. David and I spent more time together. Walks, movies, talking about dreams. He never rushed me. He never asked for more than I was ready to give. I started smiling more, laughing without it hurting. I felt free. One day I looked in the mirror and saw something I hadn't seen in a very long time, me. Not the sad girl waiting for texts. Not the woman crying alone at night. Just Daniela, strong, gentle, and alive. David became part of my life slowly, the way the sun comes up after a long night. He didn't try to fix me. He just stood next to me. And in his quiet way, he showed me what real love can feel like. One evening we were sitting in the park watching kids run around. "Do you ever want a family?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, "someday, with the right person." I smiled. "Me too." We didn't need to say anything else. I know now that love doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't have to be hidden or painful. Love should feel safe. It should feel like coming home. Looking back, I don't regret what happened. It taught me hard but important things. I learned that love without respect isn't enough. That waiting for someone who can't choose you will only break your heart. That no one else can give you peace, you have to find it inside yourself first. And now I have peace. I have hope. I have love, not from someone who has to hide me, but from someone who walks beside me in the light. If anyone asked me today, was it worth it? I'd say yes. Because through all the hurt, I found myself again. And in finding myself, I opened the door to a better kind of love, one I truly deserve.